I've now sunk more time into the game. I've done this battle maybe 4 or 5 more times now since my last recording. I've already gotten fairly used to the combat, and just like with previous versions of the Dynasty Warrior series, when it comes to picking out your weapon, there's always going to be the good weapon, the bad weapon, and your in-between weapon. The first weapon that you're looking at, which is the General Sword, I'm going to assume this is Cao Cao's sword and not the character-specific sword, your whatever they're calling him, the Wayfarer or whoever. And just like in other versions of the game, Cao Cao's weapon is not the greatest when it comes to horde clearing. It is good for single target. Now, the next weapon is the Chakrams, which is Sun Zhang's weapon. It's kind of in the balance between good at horde clearing, but not the greatest. It's good at single target DPS, but again, not the greatest. It's kind of just there, but it has better combos. And then the next sword, which is Xiahou Dun's weapon, or the, what is it called? Gnashing Fang. From what I can tell, his bravery skills are actually really good, really solid to use against single target enemies. Overall, just like in previous versions, his weapon has always kind of just been there. It's not the greatest at mid clearing. It's got really short range, so you really need to have skills equipped that'll increase your attack range. I've never liked Xiahou Dun's weapon to begin with. It never was my favorite. Now here, the Crescent Blade, it's actually the best weapon that's currently available in the demo. It has the best horde clearing. It's got a lot of cleaving potential, so you're able to get you're able to rack up a high amount of KOs really quickly. And when it comes to single target DPS, it's actually one of the better weapons to use. So it is really strong all around, and it's my favorite. I've always liked the Crescent Blade to begin with, the Green Dragon, as this usually known throughout the series. Now the companions, and I'm going to assume that the number of companions will vary depending on where they appear throughout the battles, as this is supposed to be a much more historical accurate depiction of the game as opposed to its previous iterations of the game. Picking a companion will also determine where you're spawning at the map. Picking Guan Yu, I believe, is the worst choice, because as you can see in the map from where we're spawning, we can't just quickly turn around and head towards Yuan Shao. We actually have to circle around and go meet up with him, because this time around defending objectives, which is a specific ally that can't be defeated, and if they're defeated, obviously you lose the battle. You don't get a whole lot of agency this time around with the game, which kind of sucks, because this this battle I should say, is really hard. I've only beaten it twice, and I failed it throughout most of my attempts at. Difficulty itself is usually not too much of an issue in Dynasty Warriors, at least in the previous games. It's always been pretty easy, and with Sishui Gate being the supposed tutorial level, and I'm going to assume that this might be a midpoint in the battle, or not a midpoint in the battle, a midpoint in the story. As it is, they did say that the story is going to be taking place mostly from Yellow Turban Rebellion, and it's going to end up to the Battle of Tur B. So Sishui Gate might actually be a midpoint rather than being an entry level point, or as they would normally refer to it as a tutorial mission. So maybe the difficulty for this battle is warranted. I've never failed a Dynasty Warriors mission, or I should stop calling them missions, they're battles. I've never failed a battle in Dynasty Warriors in previous versions so often as I have in this version, in this demo. And all the gameplay has always been recorded on the Wayfarer difficulty, which is the standard difficulty. I don't want to play it on easy because it does handicap you. And by handicap, I mean it holds your hand as far as how to use some of the mechanics like the dodging and the blocking and the parrying and all that. The easy difficulty is actually going to do that for you. So it's best to play it on Wayfarer difficulty. That way you have more agency over your combos and how and when you want to fight enemies and generals, not forcing you to block and such, because there are opportunities where you can do a perfect counter or a perfect dodge. And as I should have figured out in the first recording I did for this game, there actually is a dodge mechanic. I don't know why I never figured it out to begin with. There is perfect parry and there's perfect dodging. Both of them will obviously allow you to follow up with an attack. The perfect parry, from what I can tell, has better potential to shred your enemy's fortification, the shield above their health points, which will allow you to quickly follow up with an assault. Obviously the dodging is there, kind of makes it easier, because I don't know if there's any attacks that you can block that you'll still take damage from, but that might change when you're fighting more officers. Or not, sorry, more officers. What I'm fighting right there is an officer. I meant fighting generals. So generals like Lu Bu, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and Sun Ce, and whoever, just all the main characters of Dynasty Warriors, they're referred to as generals. Officers are the more generic looking characters. So the one you see up front, that's an officer, so not a general. So they've always sometimes can get confusing as to who it is you're fighting, but what I'm fighting right here, that is an officer. So they're easier to fight than generals. And if the Lu Bu fight is anything to go off of, it might be, you might also have to deal with bravery skills as well from generals. But I think officers also use some form of bravery skills. I don't think they're as powerful though. And when speaking of the bravery skills, so you can see on the bottom right corner next to the morale and the map, those 4 icons there are bravery skills, and those are best used against fighting officers, especially when you're trying to get rid of their fortification or their shield, as I'll probably just refer to them as their shield above their health. Makes it easier to put them into a stun state, follow up with what's called an assault skill. There's 2 versions of an assault skill. One is if you can take their shield out and they still have plenty of health, they'll get stunned. It'll allow you to follow up with an assault, and I'm going to assume it's more of a basic form of the assault skill, which is it kind of just laying in some free damage on them basically. And then another version of the assault skill is more of an execution, where if they have very, very little health, you can just take them out with an assault skill, which is just an execution, I guess. And there's also 2 types of bravery skills. One is just your standard bravery skill, and then the other one is a special skill, or as they refer to it, as an SP skill. The SPs are used to help break guard or cancel out an opponent's attack if their body appears orange. And I think you'll see on this fight here that as I'm fighting this guy, his body's going to turn orange. That right there, when you see those orange circles, that means, I'm going to assume that's a Musou attack. I don't remember officers ever using a Musou attack, but what you saw right there when his body lit up orange, that was an SP skill. You're able to follow up with using your SP skill and breaking their, not breaking their guard, but staggering them. The previous one where you saw what looked like a Musou skill with the orange circles, you can actually break those as well with an SP skill, but there is another type of bravery skill which is more of attack based rather than a stun. So I don't have that equipped, but you can actually equip it. There are several bravery skills to choose from, and some are going to be generic, which is universal for every weapon you choose, and then there's specific bravery skills that are unique to each weapon. And then another form of the bravery skill is when those icons turn blue like you see right now. What that means is you can do a follow-up bravery attack with your companion, and from what I was able to gather in some testing I was doing, when the icons are blue, the attacks are slightly stronger. And you can also adjust, or not adjust, but you can change the bravery skills combos. So if you tap it, it just does what you're seeing right, or that's not what you're seeing right there, that's an assault. But if you press it and just tap the skill, what you're going to do is a basic version of that bravery skill, but you can hold down that button and then your character is going to do more of an advanced combo of that bravery skill. I think those consume more bravery points, and to accumulate bravery points you just attack enemies, but it also just accumulates over time as well. The hard difficulty of the game, which is called Hero, it's going to change up the way bravery is earned and used, especially when it comes to dueling. Whenever you do a perfect parry or blocking or dodging or anything like that, it's going to consume bravery, so just keep that in mind. I don't know if leveling up your character is going to increase the amount of bravery points you can use. From what I can tell, the demo is giving you a high-level character with high-level weapons and high-level skills, and they're all level 35, I believe, if I remember right. I gotta go back. So it is giving you, maybe those values are going to change, and maybe the way the level up is going to change. So maybe what you're seeing now is not the final amount of bravery points we can use. We might be able to get more. Again, it is a demo, and they did say that some of the stuff within the demo is going to be changed in the final product. we don't even know if this battle in particular is going to be the same as it is in the demo. I do believe they might keep Lu Bu around as a side objective rather than a main objective. You've always been given the option to whether you want to fight him or just run away from him in the Battle of Hulao Gate. And that's the other thing too. I don't know if this battle in particular is actually going to be in the final release. Battle of Sishui Gate has always actually been a side objective. Sishui Gate has always been part of the Hulao battle. And the Battle of Hulao Gate is actually your introductory mission, your tutorial mission, so to speak, with Sishui Gate appearing in later entries of the series as a side objective, just because of how much bigger the maps would get. And I think it was Dynasty Warrior 7 that introduced Sishui Gate as a side objective. And Sishui Gate is where you would fight Hua Shang if you didn't get Guan Yu to reach the objective before you did. So you could fight Hua Shang even though he wasn't a side objective or anything, if I remember right. Hulao Gate is where Lu Bu will appear, and that is where Lu Bu becomes a side objective, or you can fight him and beat him and make it easier for your forces to go and you'll get that morale boost and such. Now here, the final segment of the Battle of Sishui Gate in the demo is where you'll actually start going up against the main brunt of Dong Zhuo's forces. Now here, this is where they also showcase the duel mechanic, and I can't remember when the last game had dueling. I think the last game that had dueling was Dynasty Warriors 4, as well as the Empire's version. I think Extreme Legends also had the dueling mechanic. I never played Extreme Legends, or Dynasty Warriors 4 Extreme Legends anyway. But the way the dueling mechanic works in here, and I don't know if it's automatically triggered by certain enemies or if you have to meet certain conditions in order to trigger the dueling mechanic. I think in here, Hua Shang, I believe, is an automatic trigger regardless, because he is one of the more pivotal generals in this battle, as he was kind of a nuisance in the actual battle itself in actual history. Now, when you fight Hua Shang, you actually have the option of whether or not you want to accept his duel. And from what I've gathered in this version of the dueling mechanic, as you can see at the top of the screen, where right above the timer is, which is 50 seconds for this duel, it plays out more like a tug of war type of thing. And if you can manage to get the bar all the way to blue, not only does the duel end, but you'll also kill the officer that you were dueling, which means you'll get a significant morale boost, as well as making the rest of the battle easier to deal with, because you don't have a very powerful enemy anymore in the picture. But if it turns all the way red, not only do you lose the battle, but you're also slain. You can also have the battle result in a draw, if neither side is able to get their bar fully maxed out. And if you don't max out this bar against Hua Shang in the duel and beat him, then he'll just stay in the battle as normal, but he is going to have a lot more health to deal with, and he's not going to be as easy to take out, especially when you have to deal with the enemy strategies that constantly appear within this battle. So it's always a good idea to accept these battles, and I'm going to assume that's how it's going to be in the final release as well. So this time around, I actually love the way they have the dueling set up in this game. It's amazing. I love this version of it. In fact, when I look back at it, every defeat I've had is because, one, I couldn't beat Hua Shang in those duels, and two, I couldn't beat him in the open mission. I think there was one time I actually beat him in the open portion of the battle after the duel had ended, where it was a stalemate, but Yuan Shao had little to no health and Hua Shang kind of gangbanged him, so that was a fail. Otherwise, every time, or not every time, this is only the second time I've beaten the mission, and this is because, just like the first time I beat this mission, it was because I beat Hua Shang in that duel. Hua Shang is the visual threat in this one. He's the biggest threat of this battle. So once you've mastered the fighting mechanics and the combat and such, and whenever you get to this portion, just accept Hua Shang's duel. You should have no problem beating him once you understand how to use your bravery and your parrying and your dodging and all that. It makes it so much easier to actually finish up the rest of this battle. So it's a cakewalk, even when you're getting gangbanged like I am here from that constant charging strategy. And speaking of it, as you can see here, we have a stratagem that we're dealing with, which is called full infantry charge. The only way to stop these attacks from happening is to meet the objective, which is KO 500 enemies, so that one's pretty easy. Even easier when you have a good weapon that's good against horde enemies, horde clearing and good cleaving potential, and it's a good Musou attack. Again, as I explained earlier in the beginning of the video, the Crescent Blade is actually the best choice to use in this demo for this specific task. And then you have other enemy stratagems, and so a lot of those will actually tell you take out this specific enemy to cancel out the attack. A later stratagem that appears in this battle is called the Fiery Wall, and that is done by a whole bunch of archers just constantly laying down fire arrows. Go and find the general that's in charge of that stratagem, take him out, and you'll cancel that stratagem out as well. And lastly, to actually complete this mission and actually beat it, is to take out the general defending this gate, and I'm actually fighting that specific general. Once he's been taken out, then the mission ends in success, and from there we'll move on to the Lubu duel.
Good eye. The enemy officer.
Alrighty. Now we get to the fight with Lubu. First impressions was it's actually nice to be able to actually fight Lubu this time around. Again, when I mentioned earlier in previous iterations of Dynasty Warriors, Lubu always had super armor, so no matter what kind of attacks you did, even your Musou attacks would not stun or stagger Lubu. He would just walk through it and just attack you whenever he felt like it. But in this one, which is actually pretty cool, you can actually not only stagger him with some light attacks as well as staggering him with heavy attacks. You can actually parry him, you can block him, you can dodge his moves, and of course you can also hit him with your Musou and he'll actually get staggered, knocked back and such. So this makes it a much more fair fight and obviously gives you the opportunity to fight him early on in the game. I'm also going to assume that this is also a little snippet of what's to come when it comes to the full release and fighting enemy generals. So it does look like enemy generals are going to have far more fortification or far more shield points that you have to dig your way through. Or this could just be the fact that if this is Lubu and Lubu is supposed to have 10 shield points, so maybe it's going to vary depending on which general you're fighting. Or it could also be the more notoriety that they have, they might have more shield points. We'll have to wait and see. This was my second duel and it was a bust, but I will show you the first duel I had with Lubu it was a much more enjoyable duel. So I'm going to head and just let the gameplay speak for yourself and just enjoy the duel. I did lose the duel, but it was a much better fight than the second fight was.
He's only one man. I don't care how strong he is. Surround him and send him to hell.
This'll do. Nope. What is this? Done already, you snakes. I thought you would be more entertaining. You wretches truly are all alike. Let's go. Let's go down. Now. Worthy of standing before me. This can't be. Hardly worth my time.